Okay, I think I'm up. I'm trying something new here, you guys. It's gonna give me a little bit of ideas. So I've been trying to create this video for, I feel like 10 times already, right? For some reason, my microphone is not doing well, so I thought, hey, why not go live and then just call it, right? But I'm just being frustrated, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me try to name this segment because it doesn't really, relate to GME whatsoever. So I came up with this. So I'm gonna create a random information, episode, and whether it's going to be live all the time, I don't know. I have not even decided that yet. But you're gonna be, I'm gonna have different segment here. It's just random information that may or may not relate to GME. I'll always kind of preface that ahead of time. But anyway, it's out of my frustration to try to, get this information out. It's pretty important, I in my opinion, because it has something to do with, at least good information, right? Or a well-established or well-rounded information, right? So let me tell you a little bit of background as to why this information kind of like come to my purview, so to speak, right? Of course, what I'm hoping as well is that this information is going to be useful for you in determine, whether you want to help somebody or yourself in the future in your retirement age, right? And whether it's early retirement or full retirement or whatever, or at least wait until you 65 or whatever, the mid tier, right? For those of you who doesn't know that already, and maybe you haven't thought of it, right? I just thought of it because now I have people in my family that is ready to take that step. But I also have people who already took the step and kind of trying to convince other people to do the same. And to me, I think that decision is a bit rush in that sense. I'm not saying that it's a wrong decision for them or anything like that, but I think it can be, in my opinion, is based on fear, right? And this is the fear that the decision was made. The fear is that Social Security is not going to be there, right? In the year 2035. Now, again, this one is, let me preface this. I'll set this video up real quick. This is a video that was done more than a year ago. So please, this number might not be the same. It could be more, it could be less. So it really depends on the report. So this report was put out 2022, June 2nd. So of course, I'm sure, if that's the reporting date for last year, it's probably, the reporting date for 2023. I haven't gone out of my way to look for the 23 yet, but, of course, I'll do that in my next segment, maybe. Maybe not. But, I just thought, I hope you enjoy this segment here. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be. I have the tendency to ramble on and on with no apparent way to stop. So please bear with me. But again, I hope it's very informative for you. So let's try to, I'll play the video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll wait, I'll link the link to the video down below so that you could enjoy this wonderful content from Cardinal Advisor. Now, this particular gentleman here.
So today's Cardinal lesson.
Right here. Pretty credible, seems like, right? It seems like he have a team that is working with him and very expert on retirement, right? The topic itself. So that's why I trust him.
All the news you heard about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, if you're listening to this thing live, back in May of 2022, the trustees report came out. And so what the trustees report is it's law that the people that are responsible for managing the Social Security Trust Fund have to make a report to Congress. And that report is done by accountants. I mean, this thing is accurate. It it's to the penny. And some of these things, these conspiracy theories that people tend to believe, like Obama spent this on other things and paid for the government, Trump spent it on other things and financed some other part of the government, they're just not true. I mean, if you take the time to read this report, as Tom and I do, each year, we look forward to this. I mean, we don't read word for word all 275 pages of it, but we go through and read it. And I get very upset when I read all these articles, and it's real apparent to me that the reporter or the writer who's sponsoring the article, who's writing it, and both the person that they're interviewing or the people that are so-called experts, they've just read other articles. They haven't actually looked at this report objectively. And so that...
See, I think, I could relate that to GME, right? Anything that these people, I bet you anything, those reporter, and time and time again, they quote the same, analyst, right? Oh, Wedbush only this, that. Oh, Wedbush is the only analyst that's willing to do this, and right? They don't go out and do the research themselves, look at the balance sheets, look at the, whatever is being reported, and then, just subjectively come up with their own conclusion, right? It's always based on the report of the report of the report type thing, right? And so this is where misinformation, one-liner, things like this, where, if you don't take it now, it's not going to be left for you type thing. It's like it's going to be gone by this year, which is untrue, right? Now, he's going to explain later on. I'll just continue.
That's what we've done, and we're not going to go through the whole report today, but I'm going to pull out some key findings in there to just prove that this stuff is just not true.
So he's going to do that, and but before he does that, he just want to show you how to get to the report. Now the report, again, it's 2001, the most recent one, obviously, for this particular video, and it's a year ago. I assume that's probably, there is a report that came out for the year 2022. Or even 2023, right? So the updated one is not here. But I think the information or the logic of this explanation is still ring true, though. The number may be a little bit less, whether it's 2 trillion or whatever, but, just keep that in mind. Or even more. But I have a feeling it's probably a little bit more. But I'll explain to you in a minute. Hold on, here we go.
Successful at changing them. And I guess I'm not going to try to do that today. So if you're grounded in these theories, I mean, the rest of what I'm going to go over is probably not going to mean that much to you. But if I had to pull out one number out of this whole board, okay, and just if I look through the whole report, 275 pages, and pulled out one number, it would be that the end of last year, or the beginning of this year, we started with almost $3 trillion in the Social Security Trust Fund. So let's that's money that's set aside, it's in government bonds, and it's an asset to the good. So Social Security is solvent to the standpoint that they're $3 trillion ahead of things.
Okay, so let me stop there and kind of reiterate what he's saying. These are surplus. This number right here is surplus. It's in the trust fund right now as a surplus. It's not, something that's all they have. Because the surplus means that, okay, there's other stuff that needs to be addressed here. Currently, there's a shortfall for the 2021 of this much right here. So now by the end of that report, particular one, you only have 2.8, right? So this number is by the end of 21. This is the number. I'm sure by the end of 22, this number, I bet you anything, is going to be a little bit more. Why? Well, what has been happening since then? Interest rate. What did he say was in this trust fund? Treasury bond. What has been happening to Treasury bond lately? Interest rate has been increasing, right? And so with that money coming in, right? So remember, this is a surplus. Very important to to stress that, okay? Now, currently, obviously, to pay for all of the Social Security check right here, this is the Social Security check that went out in the year 2021, right? By the end of 2021, okay? So that year we were paying this much. This is the number. You know what? Let me circle it so that people who can't see the mouse, Okay, give me 1 minute. Sorry about that. So what I did there, I just cut the screen so that I could circle that amount. So here we go. Let me rephrase this. So I stopped at the point where he was saying that this is the amount of surplus, okay, by the end of 2021. So let me rewrite that, 2021 by the end of it. So technically 2022, right? You have still, or the trust fund has this much worth of trillion in the T, okay? Trillions of dollars right there. Surplus. And most of this bond, this amount is in treasury bond, okay? T-bill. So what has been happening to T-bill lately in this couple years, in the past couple years? The rate, you know, the rate has been going up. And what happened when the rate's going up? Your interest on the trust fund, this amount goes up as well. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you, right? Because that is the part of the next thing he was going to tell you about. So that's why I think that this amount right here, by the end of 2022 or 2023, it's going to be a lot higher than this amount. I might be wrong, you know, I have to verify that myself, but again, so that's how it works.
Okay, and the national debt is around 30 trillion, somewhere in that zone. And that's about 10% of the national debt is actually an asset of the federal government and the Social Security system, almost $3 trillion. So let's take that and take note of that. That's how much money Social Security has in the bank. And that money sits there to pay off future obligations. It's kind of like an insurance company's reserves, but this is a mighty big insurance company.
So again, reserve, okay? Reserve meaning surplus.
Okay, so that's a number that I want you to grab onto. During the next number that's important is we spent, or the Social Security system and the Social Security Trust Fund spent $56 billion of that 2.8 trillion, or about 2% of our trust fund or of our future money was spent last year making up the shortfall. So, you know, 56 billion is concerning, but it just lowered the thing by 56 trillion. So I don't.
So that means only 2%. I think that's why the description right here, it's fitting. So it's almost like, let's say if you have a reserve, like a bank account, right? And you have, I don't know, $10,000, right? And at the end of it, you spend 2% of that, $10,000, 2%. What is that? I can't do math. Sorry, you guys. I know I'm good at math, but dang, can't do that. 2%. So that's $200. So that means, like, you know, of the 200 out of $10,000, it's not going to be the end of the world. You're not going to have to go bankrupt, right? So it's like you just need to add $200 into your emergency fund, right? And again, with $200 less of the $10,000 that you save, right? You still have $9,800 left for your emergency fund, right? But in the meantime, you still have income, right? Which is the next part right here.
I don't particularly like that, but that doesn't mean that it's going broke. There's still almost $3 trillion in there. Now, let's go through and see what happened financially with Social Security during 2021. So the Social Security checks that were paid to recipients totaled $1.133 trillion.
So that is the expenses of that year, 2000, like I said. So the expenses is this much for 2021, okay? So yes, it's more than what you bring in, right, every year, which is the one up here. But I'll do that later on before I end this video.
So that's about a little more than a third of the trust fund was paid out to recipients, okay? And then they also spent $6 billion running the whole system. So Social Security has to account for, financially, they have to pay their own bills for the people in the government and all the systems to administer Social Security, $6 billion. And then somewhere in there's about $5 billion of expense because the railroads historically are mixed in and kind of separate. We won't worry about that.
It's like the payment rails and all that stuff, how they get to pay you checking account. And I'm sure, some of that is like go towards the bank as a fee, right? I mean, $5 billion is just a fee to take care of the Social Security. Of course, $5 billion is a lot. And that's why they love the relationship between the government and all the funds, right?
Not too much. And, the total expenditures last year of the whole Social Security system, including administration, was $1.1 trillion. Okay?
So this is the total expenses. That total expense is from this one, the check itself, right? The amount that we have to pay out that year. And then the cost, 11. So you add $11 billion to that amount right there. You would see that it's only, hold on. Yes, so $1 billion. I don't know if that math is right though. Let me do that real quick. Because if you think about a trillion, right? A trillion is 1,000 billion. Okay, so bear with me here. I'm sorry. And if anyone has wrote on the chat, I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize if I didn't read your chat. I just realized that right now. Okay, so, and then, hold on 1 second. So if you were to plus that by 11 billion, so what is 11 billion? What did I say, 1,000, right? Okay, I think he did it right. Yeah. I just want to verify that because, so 1,000 billion would be this. This would be 11 billion, okay? So that's why it's like that. Okay, so that number is correct. So that's the total amount right there. And so if we were to say that is the expense, right? And then this is the revenue. What is the difference there? Right? If you were to minus the revenue, which is right here, meaning the income that you come in, like think of it as your job, right? And then this is how much you have to pay the bill. So that's why you have that shortfall from your emergency fund, right? Again, you have to like put it in the context of what is true, right? Now, if this is continued to happen, meaning nothing changed, right? And there's continued to have a shortfall, right? That would be detrimental. But it's not really like you would be depleting your emergency fund. Okay, like if you heard about emergency fund, right? It's a surplus that you have on top of what you bring in. So that's what it means. But guess what? There has been changes to all of this, right? Don't you think you're paying more taxes now, right? Payroll taxes, right? You have what did I just say about the interest rate right here?
A little more than a third.
Sorry. Interest rate right here, it's going to be increasing, right? Because the treasury bond has been increasing in rate. So I'm sure instead of, 70 billion now, it's probably, I don't know, maybe 100 million. Oh, billion, sorry. Things like that, really, really beneficial for this particular one to hopefully keep it at $3 trillion in a surplus, right? Just for emergency, right? And then on top of that, you could this one would also increase. You know why? Because the increase in the income from the Social Security itself, it has to be taxed on to that. So that's going to add on to that, right? But if you were to kind of look into how much is that percentage, that the $56 billion, what is the percentage of the income, right, or the revenue? The reason why I would want to do that is because I'll tell you in a minute. To figure out how much increase do you need to do in order to, to not use the emergency fund, so to speak, right? To not use the trust fund for this, or to even add more, right? So the only way to do that is to increase in here. So he's going to explain that in a minute here. Okay.
The trust fund. Okay. Now let's look at the revenue, or the money that Social Security took in to pay out those benefits. Okay. The benefits, or the checks, were 1.1 trillion. So the payroll taxes that they collected from you and me and everybody that's working, $980 billion. So the taxes that are paid by us now were almost enough to pay all the Social Security checks. But, obviously we had the shortfall. So
the shortfall for that is, again, 5%. So we need to increase it by 5%. That's it, right? Now, the decision usually is made by, voting and all that stuff, hopefully, right? We don't want them to make rash decision based on a 5% increase on everything, right? And also, too, which group of people gets the increase. That's also a matter of, societal differences, right? I would wager rich people should pay more, right? But again, I'm sure if you are a top earner yourself, you're probably going to be like, oh, I don't want that to happen. Of course, okay, that's fine. But again, this is the obligation of the government, obviously, right? Of course, there are people who think that, oh, we shouldn't be relying on the government, but this is a system that work well, that people really like. It gives people some hope of some sort of retirement after you have been spending your whole life trying to build this country, right? 30 years of your life working. So it's part of being like appreciated for the work that you've done to build this country, so to speak, right? And so I think this is the most patriotic things in the world to do. And so if you are fortunate enough to be at the point where this country have provided you the wealth, the billions of dollars that you're making, at the very least, you should at least pay some back, right? And the only way to do that is to, pay a little bit more tax if you are able to benefit immensely from that, right? But of course, we all know that there's tax loophole for the rich to, keep more and more for themselves. And that's why, you have things like this that happen, right? And so, again, 5% is not going to kill anyone, right? Especially Elon Musk. If Elon Musk have to pay 5% more of his income into this system, I don't think it's going to break his bank, right? So, again, this is the type of decision that we have to make in order to keep that surplus, happening. So, it is completely untrue when people are saying that, oh, it's going to run out at this year, because those decisions, if you were to watch the whole video here, I'm going to link down below. I'm not going to play it because, again, I think it deserves all of the view here. Of course, I'm very small YouTuber too, so if I could bring people in a couple, I think I've done my job as a content creator over here. No, I'm kidding. But what I'm saying is that it's a good information to have. So it's one of those information you might want to have in your life at some way. But so what was I gonna say? The reason why I want to kind of bring this to your forefront is because I get frustrated when the decision for you to lock into a rate that might be detrimental for you in your retirement age, right? The dangerous part is that you might be locked into a rate that you might not be able to survive because of the fear-based decision that you make, right? Based on misinformation. And the same way with GME, right? We hear an analyst out all the time saying that GME is bankrupt, it's going bankrupt, it's not making money, it's never going to post a profitable quarter and all that stuff, right? It's all hyped and it's not based in reality whatsoever. And, if you make the decision to believe in that piece of information for whatever reason, it's going to be detrimental for you in the future because you might not be able to invest in the company that may bring you, the income that you need to don't even care about the Social Security to the point like that, right? But if you do care about the Social Security, the decision that you make to take a pay cut, right? So just so you know, if you take an early retirement here, let me okay, sorry, bear with me here. I'm sorry, sir, I need to cut you out. But let me do this one right here. So, if you take the early retirement, currently, hold on, let's say early retirement is 62, I think 62 and a half or something like that. And then you have this one here. This is the year, and then you have this one. This one is a full retirement, okay? So full retirement, you're gonna get 100%. It's really based on what your earned income used to be, and then they do an average, and then you get 100% at a time, right? And I think if you wait until 65, you're gonna get 85%. I might be wrong on this one. And then this one, I think I know that it's like 75% of what you would have gotten if you wait until it's a full retirement, right? So here's the decision that matter. And I think this is the whole reason why they spread this misinformation here, in order to, now whether it's a government fuel or the network in which you consume that information from, is to mislead people into, or even scare people into making this decision. When you do, you are locking in a lower rate. So let's say that rate is let's do a ballpark here. So let's say you would have had $1,000. It's just easy math, that's why I said 1,000. You would have had $1,000, but now because you agreed to get paid less because you're afraid that it might run over, you're going to be locked in at this rate, right? Okay. Now, this rate is going to increase based on inflations and all that stuff, like calculations and all that stuff. So some years it might be 2%, some year might be 3%, some year might be 5%. It really depends on what the government is telling you, what the inflation is, right? And just so you know, the inflation, the number of inflation that they give you, it's always lower than the actual inflation. So even though you're going to get a raise over the year, it's not going to be enough to cover the rise of costs of anything, right? You think about like it's like in 10 years, 10, 15 years of your retirement age, you might be having to go back after 15 years worth of this amount because it's been so low. Eventually, it won't be covering your regular expenses, right? Whether it's utility, food's more expensive, whatever you need, or medical needs is too expensive. And the other dangerous part too is that, if you're not 65 yet, you're responsible for your own medical needs, right? So that's another nefarious reason for them to spread this lie. Whether, again, government or not, it's still a lie. Or at least a fear-based information to trick people into lock themselves in at a lower rate, right? So that they pay you 25% less money. And then also too, after let's say after 15 years, right? So if you were to add that to that year, so you'd be 77. What if you have to go back to work because you're 77 years old, and now you have to make the decision to go back to work because if you don't get to eat. That's not something that you want to make the decision. And on top of that, the government get to save money, or whoever trying to trick you into do this, get this shortfall resolved by not having to raise this net payroll, right? And who does that benefit more? Do you think? I think the top earner, right? Top earner. Because they don't want to raise taxes on the rich. They don't want to even entertain the idea of perhaps wealth taxes, perhaps, or Wall Street taxes, right? Stock ownership. All of that, they don't even want it to be in the discussion, right? So that's why, that again, a conspiratory mind, perhaps, but again, I think there's always a reason why they want to spread that misinformation around. Okay, let's finish up here. I think this gentleman speaks pretty. Let me just summarize here. I'll end it in a minute here. I think right here is a good one.
Oh, well, that's not going to be there, so let's not plan on that. And it just kind of undermines everything for us to put together for them, is we're going to use.
Okay, so there you go.
The Social Security check is the base money. And so immediately they're going to say, oh, well, that's not going to be there, so let's not plan on that. And it just kind of undermines everything we're doing. And the loser in that is you, if you buy into all this. So I think what's going to happen is they're probably not going to do anything for a while because the current problem is not that serious. And, Washington has really demonstrated that they're not going to address a problem until it really is clunking them over the head. So we're going to probably have to have a year where the jabbing of the trust fund is a little higher than that. But I think we certainly have some time. And I'd like to see them act right away, but they're going to need to do that. And Social Security is not going broke. It isn't going away. You can count on it. Maybe if you're a well-to-do person, maybe you can count on getting less because you'll be giving it back through taxes. So I'm not doing this video to get you to like any of this. I'd just like you to look at the other position and just see that a lot of the stuff that's accepted as fact is partially true, but in summary, it's not totally true. So I'd like to bring Tom back on and let him see if he has some final thoughts of some things he wants to say. Yeah.
See, that is very important because, again, this is the decision that is going to lock you in for 15 hopefully you get it retired with dignity, right? To the point where you could relax, you could go on trips and all that stuff, and not just stuck in the house and doing, and be able to enjoy the rest of your life in that way without having to go back to work.
I think clearly there is currently a problem that's out there, and it's known. We're not saying there isn't something that needs to be done, but I think to go to the extreme to say, oh, it's, throw up your hands and say it's not going to be there, I'm going to take it as early as I can. People end up making poor decisions, and we don't need to get into the details. But one I've seen a lot is people don't even know what's called an earnings test, where if you're under your full retirement age and you're still working, if you take Social Security, you might just turn around and pay it all back because you have too high of an income. And so you absolutely do not want to take it while you're still working.
That's another thing too. It's like, oh, I could always work part-time. Well, part-time, again, you're not going to make that decision. It's like, what's the point? If you're gonna, yes, if you have to work to supplement your income, sure, but you don't want to make an early retirement, except the 20% less, and having to decide to go back later on, or even in tandem, it might not make sense either.
If you're under your full retirement age. So that is just one example of a decision that is oftentimes made because they're worried about all these things on the side of the board, but they just miss something that's real important that they don't even know about. And so, when you're making this decision, you can undo it within the first year that you take it, but after that point, you've really signed up for this decision for the rest of your life. So really think through these decisions around Social Security, because this is going to serve as the base income for your retirement.
Yeah, and that's so true. So again, I'm going to link this particular video down below so you could have it and enjoy it yourself. And of course, I'm sorry I skipped through all of that, but it's very good information to go into. And of course, the channel is called Cardinal Advisor. Okay, and he has all of the other stuff. I actually just discovered it today. And so I'm planning to kind of watch all of this too. So just random information. So I don't know who has been writing. Maybe there's none. But let me check real quick to see the comment. Just in case. You might hear my voice in a minute here too. Because... there we go. Okay, so then that's good. All right, so that's good. I'll end it here. Again, this has been random info that may or may not be useful for you in the future. Okay, I'll see you. Bye.